Cthulhu. He doesn't stand for baloney.
Sounds like a lot of supernatural baloney to me. Supernatural, perhaps. Baloney, perhaps not.
Good evening, my little darklings, and welcome to the live broadcast of the Paranormal 60 aboard the Jericho Cruise. People turning thousands. This is amazing. Considering we're up against Jericho's podcast, and we brought in hundreds of people.
I wish that you had our crew.
Yeah,
We had to turn down a few folks.
right. Maybe if he sees us, though, it'll not bear to go up against us again. Welcome to the show. Thank you guys for joining us. We are the best in paranormal talk radio. I'm your host, Dave Schrader. Joining me on stage tonight, not delivering the news, but talking paranormal with me, we have Martin Valles, the Colonel.
Good to see you all.
And on the end, we've got, ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, all the way from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Chachi. I'm giving you a good backstory. You're originally from where? New Hampshire?
This is my origin story.
Yes, your origin story. So we're going to talk paranormal. We've got a lot of weird stuff has happened over the last few years, obviously, and we've still been out there investigating claims of the supernatural, the paranormal. I did a show. Did you guys get a chance to see Ghosts of Devil's Perch? Yeah. So 8 of the 250 people who saw it. So now you know why there's no new season.
That makes sense. Okay.
We got a chance to go out to Butte, Montana, and investigate claims of the supernatural. It is truly one of the most haunted towns I've ever been to. We're working on trying to put together a little conference there, so that we can have people come, hang out, ghost hunt with us at some of the haunted spots. That
Maybe a cruise there?
Yes, we'll take it. Right from the Bahamas into Butte, Montana. Not into geography, but I'm
the
pretty sure
Dave Schrader Butte, Montana Cruise 2024.
The only water source they have is that giant cesspool pond. Have you heard about it?
I'm not going to be able to make the cruise.
No. It is. I'm trying to remember the name of it. If anybody knows. Yeah, the Berkeley Pit.
How do you know about that?
I'm from Montana.
One in every crowd.
Everyone. The Berkeley, it is so beautiful. I will tell you, because it's where they were doing all the mining, and then what happened is it's filled up with all the water, and the water is broken down with all of the minerals, and it's created this absolutely gorgeous cesspool. Like they have a sharpshooter that works there to scare the birds off, because what is it? If they're in the water for more than a few minutes, they start to cook from the inside, right? Yeah.
You're telling me we're going to have free food on this cruise.
Well, in Butte, yes, all the goose and chicken
birds you want.
Yeah, but they have people blowing horns, shooting. They have all these different ways to try to get the birds off the water. But it's a crazy place, full of all kinds of paranormal activity. Do you know what kind of activity, guys, it is when chickens die and they haunt a location?
Chickens haunt the location?
Yeah, what do you call it?
I have a feeling there's going to be a dad joke on it.
Poultrygeist.
I knew it.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
There's an audience.
I'm sorry, that joke was quite foul.
Good night, everyone.
Yeah.
Wonder why Jericho's up against this.
Exactly. But going into Butte really kind of opened my eyes to the fact that I understand how important history is to understanding hauntings. And I'd never been in an environment like that where you're steeped in something where every place you go, there is a story to be told. And there's so many different layers of history contained in our own hometown, stuff we never think about or really know about, right? You're from Montana. You hear about all of the big names, the Copper Kings, the people that really built these cities, but they're not the ones that built it. They're the ones that paid horrible low wages to have other people build it for them, and then they kind of reap the rewards from these things. So a lot of the spirits have lost their way. They've been lied about. They've been forgotten. So doing a show like Ghosts of Devil's Perch gave us an opportunity to kind of reinvigorate the history of that area, give voice back to the spirit realm. And I think that I don't know where you guys stand on it. I'm really proud of doing shows like that where we're more focused on the supernatural aspect of it and the helping the spirit as opposed to just running and screaming from room to room.
Yeah, and and the thing is that the people from that town obviously loved having you there because you were treating it with more respect, and you weren't trying to scream at a ghost and have them come out as you were throwing some type of
the holy water bath.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And that does. A lot of the paranormal shows we'll hear from afterwards. People are like, we don't really want anybody else to come in here. We're really kind of burned by that show. But talking to them, and I know a lot of the other paranormal shows take heat for that, but it was like, if you've ever watched an episode, they're not in there usually to help the ghosts. They're there to corroborate the story. It is haunted. We had activity. This is it. Time to move on. Very few of these locations even want help to do something with the spirits. Most of them are people just like our audience here. They just want to know if what they're experiencing is real or not. And, when it comes to the paranormal, it's hard to discern because sometimes our grieving process is in a way that we want to believe in aspects of the supernatural that maybe we're kind of imposing our own will on as opposed to actually having an experience. We're looking for anything to make us feel that spiritual connection. And I have to be really careful doing that on the TV shows because you got to kind of remove yourself from the situation and your wanting desire to see an experience or have an experience, and then instead just allow something to be there.
So how do you, when you do the Holzer Files, right? Very different approach to the show.
Mm-hmm.
How do you prepare for the difference between the two?
Well, it was a different kind of animal altogether because with the Holzer Files, we're following in the footsteps of Dr. Hans Holzer. This guy is one of the most preeminent paranormal investigators in the world, wrote over 140 books on every aspect of the supernatural. He took this very seriously and would go in with mediums to do trance mediumship work, allowing the spirits to come through the medium to tell the story of the spirits. And his job at the end was usually to try to wrap it up and tell them, you're dead, you need to move on now, you can't be here. And he laid quite a few of these spirits kind of to rest finally. But he knew that none of the cases were ever truly closed. That chapter was over, but other spirits might rise now because there's an opening for them. And spirits seem to be kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Opportunists. When they get a chance to show themselves, they do. They jump at it. So peeling back these layers, here we're revisiting places 40, 50, 60 years after Dr. Holzer was there, and we go in and get a chance to, reopen these case files. Now, there were one-off buildings here, one building over here, nothing like Butte. When we went in there, I was not prepared for the amount of activity and claims of paranormal activity because it's everywhere. And you think, this is, okay, there's the haunted brothel. We always have a haunted brothel. We have a haunted hotel.
Can we talk a little more about that?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that brothel.
Yeah, that was a creepy place. And we got a lot of activity, so much tragedy. And you realize this community was built really on gambling, prostitution, and mining. And that's it. And none of them were kind of above each other in the social status. They all kind of coexisted, but there was such a violence that lived in that town that there's blood everywhere. So every place you go into, some spirit wants to be heard. They want to be spoken to, or they want to be recognized. And in some cases, it's terrifying. I felt really bad for Cindy Keza as the medium that we work with, because she would go into these locations and sometimes was so overwhelmed by the energy, you could see it was taxing her. It was literally breaking her. She's very strong, she's great at what she does, but you could tell sometimes it was just too much. And that's why I'm always cautious of, I kind of want to have that ability. How many people out here would like to be a full-on medium? Just a couple, yeah? I don't know that I really want that gift.
Yeah, I was going to say, why wouldn't you want that gift, though? Because it is a gift, right? I mean,
Yeah, but I mean, every 15 minutes you have a spirit coming up to you. Hey, man, I need to have you talk to my ex-wife for me or something like that.
I would not do that.
No, see, another reason.
I don't want to be
There you go.
You don't want to have that gift, but it's also just being empathetic and being open to that spiritual contact can be really overwhelming, right? You go into places, like I'll go to conventions, and I'm not a psychic or medium, but I have an empathetic aspect to who I am. I can get overwhelmed by a crowd quick. just by the energy. Sometimes you get that chaotic energy, right, in the crowd, and you can just sense it. And that's tough. So I can't even imagine somebody who's a medium and is just like an open conduit to that, how that's not just like a drink out of a fire hose.
Dave, with Cindy, does she even have the ability to shut that off at times, or how does that work?
Yeah, she teaches courses. So if you guys are ever interested in becoming a medium, and I recommend, even if you're not, but you're interested in the paranormal, take a course on mediumship from Cindy, because she'll kind of take you through all the elements of this. She knows how to shut it down, but we're bringing her in and asking her to open up.
Yeah.
And she doesn't know what story she's looking for. So she's got to open up the entire book, and it's like absorbing everything at once. It's not like I said, okay, we're going in to speak to the ghost of Chachi, right? And he lived in Milwaukee in 1954 and was the cousin of the
origin
Fonz,
story.
right? Yeah. There's no specifics, so she can kind of hone in. She has to literally open up and just let everything in, and it's tough. And there were times that it was funny. She would be telling us stuff, and she'd be like, I'm getting, in the Ghost Devil's Perch, she goes, I'm getting clowns. There's like clowns and this and that. Turns out that the couple that owned the house that we were investigating for, in their off time, they do clown stuff. That sounds weird. They do clown stuff. Yeah. They were clowns in like the local parades and the children's hospitals and things. But we didn't know that. So we're just hearing these stories, and I'm like, no, there's no clowns in this story. But she was picking up on different elements. And she has to sift through that to find what is the problem there. And but immediately when you hear the word clown, automatically the hackles on the back of your neck stand up, right? Because you're like, I don't want a ghost clown to deal with, right? That'd be the worst thing. Thankfully, we've had ghost cowboys, ghost miners, ghost prostitutes.
More about the ghost prostitutes.
And then the ghost clowns are, that's not what I'm looking forward to. No.
So, how did she react to the Dumas? I mean, because when I went there, I went there for the last episode that they showed there. That place, you walk into it, you immediately feel something. And I don't feel that often, but in this case, you walk in there and it's just a weird feeling place. And we caught some pretty good EVPs at that
right
place too.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, when we aired the final episode of Ghost Devil's Perch, I went to Butte, Montana to view the final episode with citizens from the town. We had this big theater to show the episode, and the Colonel came with me, and we got a chance to investigate a few of the sites.
Right.
And one of them is the Dumas Brothel, which has got all of this amazing history to it. And there were people kind of walking around with us in there, and we broke out our spirit box, and we're communicating, and I said, I wonder if the ghost of Eleanor Knott is here. And clear as day, through the box, you hear the voice go, Eleanor Knott. And it starts responding to the questions we're asking. And it was that quick. And when we were down in the basement, I felt so bad when we did the episode. I'm down there with this girl, and she was just a little sweetie. She's real small, real petite, and she'd been spooked out of the basement before by this overwhelming ghost, right? So we have this, what we think is this dialogue with the spirit, and it admits it wasn't trying to scare her out. It was trying to get her out of there to protect her from something else. And we're having this great moment, and she's kind of getting weepy because it feels like this relief. All this time she's had this fear of this spirit down there, and it was one of the female prostitutes who passed away that was trying to help her get out because the darker male presence there was very abusive. And we get done, and we're just kind of standing there afterwards. We get this nice back and forth with a REM pod that's beeping and answering our questions. And I go, how do you feel? And she's like, I feel so much better. And as we're doing that, out in the hall, you start hearing footsteps back and forth. And I go, is that one of the producers? Hello? Who's out in the hall? Nobody responds. Hello? I go, come on. So we walk out in the hall, and you could hear it in the hallway with us. So I break out my recorder, and I'm like, hey, come on down. You don't have to be shy. You can come right by us. And I've got the recorder out, and I'm like, what's going on? And all of a sudden, it's just like, and I play it back, and you hear just this screams and guttural growls. And I look at this girl, and she just, one tear just rolls down her cheek, and I go, let's get you out of here. She goes, yeah, I think that'd be a good idea. So we just thought we put her to rest and made her feel better. But this was that spirit that it was trying to protect it from. So we got her out of there pretty quickly. But you could feel it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was heavy in there. But that was another story where there was so many lies told about the people and the deaths that occurred, and so many mysteries surrounding different elements of those. And some of them we can't really talk openly about because there are still family members of potential murderers in that town. So when you've got that you're up against, all of a sudden it gets real uncomfortable, and you're off to the side, we're talking to the cops, and they're like, yeah, that was always kind of on our radar. And I'm like, well, what do you do about it? Well, what can we do? A ghost can't solve its own crime, you know?
Yet.
This is right. And we were trying to explain it, but actually I think didn't we just talk about that? Zona Ray Heister on one of our shows?
Yeah, last week.
Yeah, with the Greenbrier ghost, right?
Right.
And she was a ghost that actually solved her own crime. Came back, Zona May Heister, and she's telling her mother what happened to her, because supposedly she just died during childbirth, but nobody knew she was pregnant. He had her dressed very strangely with a scarf around her neck, and the ghost kept coming back to her mother saying, he threw me down the stairs and broke my neck. And the mom finally went to the police and said, my daughter's spirit is crying out from the grave. He broke her neck. So they exhume the body and find out, truthfully, her neck is broken. And he just wrapped her up, stuck her in the coffin, and called it a day. That was the end of it. It was crazy that they could get away with this. But that, in Greenbrier, right, there's that big sign that talks about this, and it's the only case in history where a ghost solved its own murder.
There's actually a plaque commemorating.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, the Red Barn Ghost, another one like that. But you go in and you get kind of into the history of these stories and hear how the spirits want to be kind of exposed. And I've said I don't ever feel bad that I kind of get knocked on my ass from time to time, because I feel that's a gift. I feel like what they're doing is they're reaching out to somebody that can sense them. Yeah. It's not a gift when you guys knock me down. It's a gift when they do.
It's a gift to us, though, right?
Exactly, yeah. You can tell the police.
Exactly.
So, show of hands, how many people in the audience here have ever seen a ghost? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 8, 10, 12 of you? All right. Wow, out of 280 people. All right, so you've got people that have seen it. How many people have ever heard a ghost?
Ooh, a lot more. That's interesting.
Yeah. How many people have ever been touched by a ghost?
Yes, please.
Yeah, that's what you say until you get knocked on your ass.
Overrated.
Yeah, definitely overrated.
There's a story there.
Yeah, well, watch the shows. I got knocked down twice in Holzer Files and twice in Ghost of Devil's Perch. So I guess it's per season I just get my ass kicked and handed to me. But again, let's all feel bad for poor Shane Pittman, who scratched his elbow in one episode. But I do think it's interesting that if this is the way the ghost is going to display itself to me, and it's going to do it in a physical form, I don't mind that as much. It's terrifying at the moment, but it's also kind of exhilarating, and you get the realization that there's so much more to this than anybody gives it credit for. It's like many of you, I watch the TV shows and I'm like, come on, nobody knocked that guy down a flight of stairs. Nobody pushed that person. Nobody scratched that person. And then on our first episode of Holzer Files, I get chucked into Shane and hit the ground and get thrown back in the bathroom in the second season and split my back open. And I'm like, well, there's a lot more reality to this. So I wonder, I think there's only one official case on file where a ghost supposedly killed somebody. And it's because the ghost frightened the guy so bad he had a heart attack. So they attribute that to them. But I don't know if there's any other cases where a ghost legitimately pushed or hurt somebody, brought them to death. Because, who's around to tell at the end of it?
That's right.
But that force is unbelievable when it gets unleashed, because it's nothing you're prepared for. I see you, I know you might be a threat, so you can kind of gauge, and if you come at me, I can duck. But when you don't see what's around you, and Cindy's like, he is so pissed, he wants to knock you on your ass. He's like, oh yeah, okay. And then all of a sudden you're chucked into somebody else and hit the ground. It takes a long time to kind of have the brain process what just happened and why and how. Because it just doesn't seem like that kind of force should exist, but it does.
How long did it take you to come back from what you just experienced?
I'm hoping by the end of tonight I'm over it. No, it took a while. Because again, it's such a head trip. You have this experience, and you're sitting there trying to make sense of it. And I immediately turned around thinking a cameraman had tripped into me and fallen into me because it was that heavy and big feeling. And when there was nothing there, I just went outside and was kind of walking around in circles talking to myself, and they're filming me, and I didn't realize it. But I'm out there, and I still have a hot mic, and I'm like, what just happened? That didn't happen. How did that happen? Did I trip? Did I pass out and I don't realize it? And, I'm thinking all these things I might have done that I didn't realize I did. You try to make sense of it, and you can't. And it messed with me, but it was great. I've mentioned this story before. We had an executive producer who was on set with us for the first episode. And during one point when we were inside and weird stuff was going on, the light bulb above her blew out. I mean, it shattered and rained down glass on her and the console in the little off-site area where they're watching us film. That unnerved her. When I get knocked on my ass and come out, once she checked on me, she's like, can somebody walk me to my car? I want to go. And that was it. And we didn't see her again for 2 seasons. She never came back out. She never
was the producer?
She was the executive producer from the network. Usually they're always fiddling with you and trying to, let me give you some input on the show. She saw a big, 185-pound guy.
Ish.
Yeah. Her input was, I'm going to show you how to drive as fast as humanly possible out of this area.
She sees a 285-pound guy get flung like a rag doll, and that was enough. She was like, my producer from the network, or from Painless Productions, he goes, hey, thanks. I'll have to let you know if another one's coming in. Can you manage to do this every time? I'm like, let's try not to, all right?
Yeah. But along that line, Dave, when we did see something at Dumas, a lot matters, I think, in regards to how you react to it. Because when I heard it at the same time you did.
Right.
And I'm looking at Dave kind of like, okay, if he gets startled, I'm obviously going to get startled. And Dave had this reaction, was like, okay, well, let's keep doing this. And I'm like, okay, so I guess he's not startled. Is this really happening, or am I hearing things? But I think a lot of the importance is you don't overreact. You kind of continue on trying not to, if there is something there, the spirit there, trying not to get it to freak out, because you're freaking out, obviously.
Right. Yeah, is trying to stay calm. And there, trust me, inside you're kind of, what just happened, right? It's that feeling of standing at the top of, or sitting at the top of the roller coaster and looking down, and you're like, oh, what happens next? But you just got to kind of go with it and see where it takes you. And hopefully the spirits will finish this communication and you can move on. And we had, that place was steeped in tragedy and so much death and heartache and sadness, and it's overwhelming still. Hard, it's been closed down now since the 80s. It started back in the early 1800s and stayed open until the 1980s.
As a brothel?
As a fully functioning brothel.
What's that address?
Yeah. So it's got a lot of weird energy to it, just very bizarre. And then how they treated people. The brothel, like each floor was kind of the rich people came in on the, they got to be in the top floor. The next level people in there. Then the bottom floor was for the guys like us, the podcasters, making podcast money.
Wow.
Right? And then the basement are for guys that used to have a podcast. They have these little cubbies kind of carved out, and it was crazy, the spinning of it. They literally had the doors going 24/7, and then they had a tunnel that came into the building from other places so that the rich and wealthy could come in and not be seen walking into the brothel. So there's a lot of secrets in the
That
tunnel.
basement was depressing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like holes cut out in the earth and a bed thrown in there, and that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, no, got nothing on that one. All right.
You want the address?
I'm
I'll
gonna
withhold my comments
Yeah.
until after we're recording.
Well, yeah, you feel bad about the squalor and what they had to live through in order to just make a living, eke out a living. And what's funny is you find out these stories, like the prostitute that we were helping, the spirit, she was married to one of the miners. This was her job. He was a miner. Her husband knew this was her job. He had to do what he had to do. She had to do what she had to do. And then when she was killed, the mother-in-law is the first person on the site. And she's like, good for you. You shouldn't have married my son anyway. She's dying outside. The mother-in-law hackling and busting her balls right in the last minutes of her life. Can you imagine that, right? I mean, and she stepped in to try to save somebody else and ends up catching a blade, and that ends her life. And then she doesn't even get the dignity if she went out as a hero. She gets henpecked to death at the very end. It's brutal. It's absolutely heartbreaking to know that this is how some of the people lived, and that was just their life. Very strange. Do you have any questions in the audience? If you do, raise your hand. We've got somebody with a microphone who will run out. There. All right. Very cool.
All right.
So just tell us your name and what state you're from, and then hit me with your question.
Hi, my name is Johnny. I'm from Oklahoma.
Okay, Johnny
And
from
What
Oklahoma.
part of Oklahoma?
Northeastern part of it. So if you know where Tulsa, Oklahoma is,
Very well,
right?
yeah.
I'm like 36 miles from there.
Got it.
So my question actually revolves around Oklahoma. Have any of you guys ever did any paranormal stuff there? Because I know we have in the southern part like Bigfoot sightings and stuff, and then all over the state in Fort Gibson we have ghosts.
I have not had the opportunity. I don't even think I've driven through Oklahoma at any point in my life.
Really?
If you showed me a map right now and put my life on the line, I don't think I could point out where Oklahoma was.
Wow.
That's how bad I am.
It's the ugly stepsister to Texas.
Oh, is it? Is it? Wow.
You go there.
Well, nice
Dear Oklahomans, please send your emails directly to Chachi at hedoesn'tworkhereanymore.com.
I just moved down to the first floor of the brothels.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, I haven't been to Oklahoma. What is one of the biggest stories from your area?
I would say probably one of the cooler things is the Fort Gibson, which was actually the site of one of Custer's final vows before he died up in Montana or wherever it was. There was a woman whose husband joined the military. She found out he was cheating on her, so she disguised herself as a man to figure out who he was cheating on. And so we have a national cemetery for that fort there, and that's haunted because she froze to death in one of the winters.
Wait, I'm confused. So she dressed like a man to try to trap her husband and figure out who he was cheating on her with?
Yes.
And she froze to death while doing this investigation?
I mean, back then Oklahoma got more than just a little bit of ice, so it was like super cold back then.
Okay.
And so yeah, she was out. I think she might have got lost, or she hid in a barn or something. I don't remember
gotcha.
the story.
Maybe her husband and the girlfriend was skiing or something like that out there.
Is Oklahoma known
Yeah,
for
is that for skiing?
mountainous
I don't know.
ranges?
Mountain range.
Yeah.
Isn't Oklahoma pretty flat?
Pretty flat. Lots of tornadoes there, right?
We have the Wichita
Thanks for
Mountains.
that, cheery boy.
Yeah.
Lots of tornadoes there, right?
Trying to get my podcast
You're not a
back.
big Oklahoma guy, are you?
Not a fan of Oklahoma.
Still better than Texas, though.
So is her spirit still seen?
I think so, but it's one of those that's almost lost in history.
Okay.
Like, you really have to search out some of those stuff, but it's all over the place. Like, in the land rush, Oklahoma City, there's an entire little district that has a bunch. It was a whore district.
It was a what?
A whore district. Prostitutes and shit.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that.
Prostitutes and shit. Okay.
But yeah, like,
Why didn't you just say that to begin with, man?
yeah, they have that. And then there's
That's the language we speak.
Yes.
And then there's the Biltmore Hotel in Oklahoma City also that's haunted.
Okay.
What happened? There was a big thing in downtown Tulsa, right? They burned down like
1923 Tulsa race riots.
right?
Yeah.
They burned
Yeah.
down like part of the town.
Yeah, it was Black Wall Street, which was actually the largest African American economy in the nation. And Tate Brady, I think was the guy, wanted that land so he could build more factories and stuff. And he wanted to build a theater there. So after a guy supposedly whistled at a woman in an elevator, it set off a race riot, and he was able to turn that thriving district into a factory. Now Tulsa's building back up the Greenwood district.
Yeah.
Just whistling at somebody could start a riot. You don't want to come to Minnesota in the cold weather when everybody's sniffling and you get the
Sounds
whistling
like a whistle.
boogers in there, right? Saying, what? End of battle. That's horrible. So there's a lot of tragedy steeped in your area then.
Yeah,
a lot of weird stuff.
for the
You guys have a lot of UFO sightings in Oklahoma too, don't you?
Yeah.
Actually, wasn't there one the last couple of weeks, right? A big one hit the national news.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure.
You're not really from Oklahoma.
Somebody's ayahuasca trip.
And Bigfoot. Bigfoot's big in Oklahoma too?
Yeah, down around Durant and Ardmore, which is just 2 hours from Dallas. They have a whole bunch of Bigfoot stuff, and they have Bigfoot tours. And I think
Now, when you say Bigfoot tours, people take you on a tour to go try to find Bigfoot, or Bigfoot leads you on a tour? Come on, guys, I'm going to show you this over here.
I think some of the guys are unshaven, so they might look like Bigfoot.
How about you? Have you ever had a personal paranormal experience?
I have.
All right, well, tell us, Johnny.
This thing's really Johnny, too.
I know.
So I was actually talking to one of my cousins just recently.
Okay.
I had my great grandma passed in 1992. I was like 2 or 3 years old when it happened, and I remember seeing her sitting in a chair that my grandma had, because she lived with my grandma at the end of her life, and I hadn't told my cousin this. And when we were talking, my cousin's like, "Yeah, Grandma Jessie was around the house all the time," and so, without ever talking to her, both of us remember seeing Grandma Jessie after she had passed.
Very cool. Do you feel she was at peace?
I think she was there to just kind of watch over us kids, because the cousin that she would see, like, if she was afraid of thunderstorms, so if it was raining or something, Jessie would show up and be like, "It's okay, you're fine," and kind of like get her back to sleep.
Gotcha.
She came multiple times then.
Yeah.
Well, and she would interact, so it wasn't just like Grandma standing in the doorway staring at you.
Right.
Wow, very cool.
Doesn't that happen a lot? I mean, kids that have never met their grandparents, or in some cases their parents, actually see them and communicate with them.
Yeah, we had a great story a couple of years ago. One of our listeners was talking about the fact that they, their little boy, as he was growing up, he would always talk about this guy Bob, and Bob was dressed in like military outfits, but Bob would always talk to him and hang out with him, and he was out in the yard and just was always kind of around. And one day, the grandmother showed up, and she was going through some family photo albums, and he goes, "Look, it's Bob!" And there was this guy, and it was the grandmother's grandfather from like World War I, and that was him, and he had died 100 years before this kid was even born. And he's like, "That's Bob! That's who's always hanging outside and talking to me." And they were all like, "Holy crap!" And that's pretty amazing when you get those kind of holy beat moments, you know, and the spirits are still there. We have to do this. We're going to take a quick break. Thank you, Johnny from Oklahoma. We appreciate it. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll hear more of your stories, more of your questions right here. And we're back. This is Jericho Cruise. 60. Thank you all for joining us and being here. I appreciate it. Let's hear some more stories, some more weird experiences. Or if you have any questions for us, raise your hand and we will have this fine young lad run out with a microphone. Anybody? Anybody here? Right over there? Okay. I can't see from this angle. Sorry. Go ahead. And your name is?
Dave, it's Joe in Nashville. How are you?
Joe in Nashville. Good.
I like Nashville. This is a good one.
All right, Joe. So what's do you have a story or a question?
When you watch shows like this 1893 and Yellowstone and these shows about really old places and old times, does it take you back or make you think about paranormal experiences? It seems like
this question got dodgy there for a second. Well, he's like, "Does it take you back?" I'm like, "How old is this shithead guy now?"
It's the lights.
It seems like these towns with these really old sort of stories and traditions have a lot of really great old stories to tell. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's awesome. You watch these shows, and even though they're fictional, a lot of them are rooted in the reality of these towns. But again, it's who is it centered around, you know? And there are some problems because there have been shows that have been based around real examples of people, and they alter it slightly, but then people start talking about the uptick in their home or their area where the ghosts were kind of misrepresented. And it's weird, you know, like, that's the parts of this I don't get. You kind of want to think, okay, you die, you go to heaven, or you get reincarnated. Maybe you can stop by and visit your family and friends from time to time. How petty are we as ghosts that, like, we're watching TV from heaven and they're like, "They got it wrong, I'm coming back down," right? And they come back down. It's so strange, but I love the history. That, to me, is is the whole story of these hauntings and why it's important to remember these aspects of our history, because we're always doomed to repeat them. But maybe if we start listening closer to the voices of our ancestors and elders, we might start learning to turn things to a different way, because we can see what has not worked in the past, but we don't ever make an exponential jump to the left to make it a different pathway. We just kind of step over the carcasses of the things we've left behind us and hope that we'll find a better way in the future. And that's tough. But I love historical programs, and I love watching those kind of things and how they evolve, and telling the stories of the land and giving you some reason to care about your area again, right? That's awesome. Right.
Does violence have a lot to do with that? A lot of these towns, especially in the West,
Sure.
very violent. People had to do some pretty bad things to survive. Do you find that to be more spirit activity there?
Yeah, well, look, even going back to the first episode of the Holzer Files, Whaley House in San Diego, California. When you think Wild West, you think that's not the first place that comes to mind, right? Laredo,
right? That
comes to mind, right? Yeah. You think of places like that, and it turns out that in San Diego there was this huge battle. They had as the white man encroached in that area. They were pushing the people out that were indigenous to the locations, Hispanic and Native American, and pushing them out. And here you've got this group of rebels, right? In a movie, we'd have called them Han, Luke, and Chewie, right? And in this story, these guys were like, screw it, we're taking it back. This is our land. This is our... And the people are behind them, and they go in, and they go into the Death Star, but they don't hit the target, and they end up getting caught and killed. And that's the end of their story. And the heroes are those of us left behind that caught those rascallions, and we hung them, and we shot them, and we showed them, this is our America. And then the spirits are pissed. They're... For so long, they've been painted in the corner, and here we've got this guy, Juan Verdugo, and the other members he was with, that they were the heroes of their culture. They were the heroes of their story. What they did was not horrific in their eyes. They were just trying to take back what had been stolen from them. Right. And they paid the ultimate price for it. So, yeah, I think sometimes the violence begins, so you forget who the people are behind it. And that was the whole thing. I was playing over and over the recording, calling out this Juan Verdugo. Are you the guy, did you make Violet Whaley shoot herself? And what I asked that question, and out loud, we heard a gunshot in the house. That's what freaked us all out to begin with. Even our directors jumped, right? The camera guy, Rob, was there, and you see it pop up because it sounded like it was in the house by us. And these camera guys, they have to work like National Geographic cameramen that are filming in the Serengeti plain, watching a tiger sneak up or a lion sneak up on a gazelle. You can't interfere. But they're also freaked out because they just heard a gunshot in the house. And then I start playing the recording back over and over and over, and then that's when I get shot. So it's kind of like Juan Verdugo's like, yeah, I'm here. And once we establish that, we said, we're going to tell your story. We're going to let people know that what happened to you is a tragedy. And Mr. Whaley was involved in the death of all of them. Yeah. And then bought the plot of land where they hung everybody because he got that piece of land for like $5 in their time, which was like $5 today. It meant nothing. And he bought this huge piece of property where people had been hung and then built his house.
Yeah, and the thing is I know you like talking to a lot of law enforcement officers about the experiences they had. At the Whaley House, right down the street, a couple blocks away, is a sheriff's department substation. And I know someone that is in the sheriff's department there in San Diego, and they say almost every month they see something there. And the law enforcement officer said, yeah, it's just the way it is, we see it, just let it go.
Yeah, the cops just, it's funny how many cops, do we have any police officers here with us? No, I can't see any raised hands. Where? Oh, very cool. Have you ever had a paranormal experience? He said, not his own, but there's plenty in his city. I have to repeat for the podcasters that can hear it. And how many of the cops have just accepted it now? They're like, we made stops at these houses, and I have a couple of friends that are police officers, and the one guy was telling me, he goes, yeah, we used to get called to this house all the time. There's somebody in the attic. And he goes, we went there and checked it 100 times. There was nobody ever there. And then the one time she's like, I'm telling you, there's somebody in the damn attic. The police get there, and as they're talking to her, calming her down, thump, 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 they start hearing the footsteps. And they're like, go outside. And out come the guns. right? And then they go check the attic, there's nothing there. And he just came to the fact that they're like, we can't help you. You got to come to terms. When we lived, and I've mentioned this story before, but I don't know if you guys have heard this. When we had our last house that we were renting, right? My wife and I, and we had our kids there, there was a room our son did not want to sleep in, which worked out well for me. I got to turn it into my studio, right? He went and slept downstairs with his two brothers. So I got this room, but he would hear laughter coming from under his bed, and he would see a man in his closet. So, being a paranormal dad, obviously I thought he was just nuts and was making stuff up, right?
What could be the explanation?
Exactly. It's crazy. Kids seeing ghosts. Come on. So I was just totally, kind of dismissive of it, which is weird because we had a lot of weird stuff happen in that house. But then on our final night, we bought a house like 2 blocks away. So we had moved everything over. And the only thing left was my studio. And it was the last night of my radio show. It was a Friday night. I'm saying goodnight to everybody. I hit the deal. I hang up the headphones. No, it wasn't even a Friday night. It was like a weeknight because the kids were supposed to be at home sleeping. And all of a sudden I hear somebody walking around downstairs. So I text my wife. I go, did you come over here? And she goes, no, you just woke me up with the alarm. I go, are one of the kids over here? And she's like, no, everybody's asleep. And I'm like, oh crap, people have been seeing us move out. They probably broke in. So I do what any macho man would do. I locked the bedroom door and I hid in the closet and called the police. And I'm like, I need you to get over here. And they go, for what? And I go, because I think somebody broke in. I'm home alone. I've only got this one room left. We've been moved. They're like, okay, we're sending somebody, Mr. Sheriff, stay on the phone with me. I'm like, okay. Oh, can you hear them? I'm like, yeah, they're coming up the stairs. I can hear them. Okay, so cops are there. How do they get into your house? My passcode, right, is 8675309. I'm a kid of the 80s. What can I say?
Anybody over 50 has that number, yeah.
So they open up the garage door, and the cops come in. And all of a sudden I hear at the door, at my bedroom door. So I open up the closet door, and I come out. I came out of the closet, guys. I open up the door, and the 2 cops start walking in. I know. I open up the door, the cops come in, and they're like, we've done a whole search. There's nobody in the house. I'm like, that is so weird. I'm telling you, in here I've got the car parked out with darkness on the plates. I've got my paranormal stuff hanging up all around. And they're like, oh, this guy's just a Looney Tune. And all of a sudden they start hearing the footsteps. And the guy, it was great because the one cop is this big guy, the other one's this short woman. And the guy goes, shh, I got this. And she takes out the gun and she goes, go back in the closet.
He had just come out of the closet.
Right? Back in. So I go back in the closet. They go stalk around the house and they cannot find anybody. So what's their response? They come into the room and they're like, yeah, there's nobody here. You're going to leave with us now. And I'm like, well, what do you think it is? Oh, I don't know. Let's go. So we got out and that was the end of it. We were gone. But I had this weird stuff going on right in my own home. Yeah. Did we have any questions out there? Any other stories? Yes, right up here in the front row. Can we get our microphone out here? Where are we at?
Yeah, back here.
Where? Oh, back here. Okay. There we go. Okay, go ahead. What's your name?
Brian from Lexington, Kentucky.
Hey, Brian from
Lexington,
Kentucky. Do you know the other
bourbon?
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, there you go.
So what's your story for us?
I have got a 2-parter for you. Just something quick for you to answer.
Okay.
With the increasing in technology, we saw over the course of probably the last 10, 12 years, we saw REM pods, we saw spirit boxes advance. Mm-hmm. Do you guys see an even bigger increase in technology for the paranormal? And my second question is being a paranormal investigator myself for so many years, can we actually get someone on TV that when they scream that they have a cold spot, can they please put a thermometer to that so we can have some evidence that they're witnessing a cold spot?
No and no. Next question.
No.
All right. So first of all, I think we're getting to a really interesting place where there are a lot of people that, off the record, that are very smart engineers, scientists that are putting together testing protocols and building equipment to test our theories. So we're starting to see more. But it's funny, the longer I'm in this, the less I'm becoming self-reliant on the equipment. Really, I'm down to a recorder. because I'm an MTV generation. I want it now, right? I want to ask a question, get my answers. So I really I like that technology better. I feel like it's more personal. But there's some great stuff coming out that I've seen. I've seen some of the beta test versions of some stuff that might upset a lot of apple carts coming up here. So just keep your eyes peeled. Here's the deal. When we feel a cold spot, we do use a thermometer in a lot of cases. But ghost hunters and ghost adventures took so much heat when they used to use the thermometers that it was like, well, why bother to use it? Because if we're using it, you're going to tell us we're using it wrong. And it's hard because most of the digital laser ones, you're putting it, I'm aiming right here into the cold spot, but the laser's going over there and reading that post. It's not reading the cold spot. So there are some that have like these weird antenna that are on top of them that they're collecting the ambient temperature so you can hold it out. But if you're not getting a good reading off it, they just cut it out and let's just move on to something that's more important. So there is a lot of the stuff. We use a lot of tools you never see on TV because we just didn't get any response. We didn't get any results. So when you see us in these locations, and people will pick on me for, whoa, you sent Shane to that room. Yeah, well, 2 hours later, I was in that room by myself. And 2 hours after that, Cindy was in that room by herself. We all have to do it, but they only keep in the parts of the episode where something exciting happened, and not everything happens in the same room with the same people. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic. I'm with you. Just like you, I'm hand to God. I hate that in every show I'm on, and every paranormal show, when they're doing EVP reviews, they're playing music and sound effects. Just let it be. The problem is a lot of producers don't have enough faith in the evidence to just let it be. So they've got to give you the creepy music to let you know it's scary. And they don't need to do that. Because to me, what's even more creepy is it's quiet, and all of a sudden you hear coming from the recorder. I don't need right? And then while it's doing the and it buries half of the EVP. We've all spoken to production companies, and they just kind of roll their eyes and pat us on the head and go about doing what they're going to do anyway. So we just try to do the best we can and create what we can do with the equipment we've had and try to tell the best stories we can. And I will say this. There are things that don't make the episodes that break my heart that were amazing, but they didn't have a part of the story we were investigating, right? So if a ghost clown suddenly shows up, and he's juggling, and we catch it on film, it's awesome, but had nothing to do with the entire rest of the story. The clown wasn't part of the story, wasn't in the history, so it has to go to the cutting room floor.
It's amazing.
So first season of Holzer Files, we did a special edition where we went back in and plugged in some of the evidence and things that didn't make the first cut, and they only aired that, I think, once. They ran every episode over again with these special little pop-up video moments where we'd talk about it and then play that piece, but they never showed it again, which is kind of a bummer. So hopefully we'll get to see more once all this new Discovery Channel, Warner Brothers, HBO thing settles down. Hopefully they'll start filming again with more shows, and we'll get back out, keep trying these different experiments. Yeah, we had, where's our microphone? Man, right over here in the front. Oh, okay. Right there, and then we'll come up in the front row here. Yes, what's your name? Where are you from?
My name is Chaz, and I come from Shillington, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So I have a tale that kind of requires a slight backstory.
Okay.
And I actually have a witness of things that occur all the time.
Can I get a witness? I never say that one, so go.
So ever since I've been a little girl, we used to sleep all the time in my mom's room because we couldn't afford multiple bedrooms, so we all used to stay in one room. And every single night, I would always see a woman in the window, always hiding between the curtains all the time. And I would tell my mom about it, and she would kind of dismiss it because I was young, but I would keep seeing it as I grew up. And eventually, my grandmother had shown me a picture of my great-grandmother who looked exactly like the woman in the window. So I had asked my grandmother, what is this about? And she'd tell us that there was something weird in our family where our great-grandparents would come and protect the great-grandchildren. And I was like, Grandma is going insane. We're going to ignore this lady right now. So I did for a very long time, up until I moved in to my own place. And we started experiencing some paranormal stuff in our place. So I thought that, maybe, the place that we had bought had been haunted in some way, shape, or form. And we'd bring people in, and nobody would detect anything. But there have been situations where, we have a certain light that only turns off by you turning the switch that has been turned off in his room. There has been blankets that have been perfectly folded after many situations of them being a mess on the floor.
My sons are here. Did you hear that? Ghosts know how to fold a goddamn blanket. Why can't
it was
you?
Great. It was great. It was great. So I decided to experiment on this, and I got a couple of pendulums, and I did a couple of boards, and me and my friends discovered the name Foster. So I was like, this is a Wednesday Addams situation. This ain't it. And for giggles, I asked my grandmother, and she was like, oh, that's the way you bonded with your great-grandfather. You couldn't pronounce his name, so you always called him Foster, because he looked like Foster from, the Addams family.
Oh, Fester.
Yeah.
But you said Foster instead of Fester, right?
Right.
Okay,
right,
gotcha.
Exactly.
All right.
So ever since that I started giving him acknowledgement and recognition, he's become much more active in our household. So if at any point I am pissed, he will take it out on either him or on my husband. The other day, Netflix was not working very well for them. Every time they try to play something, Foster would play something different to annoy them, to say, I'm mad at you. So a movie or Airplane, something that would say that the title is trying to call them out. To say get your attention on it.
I love that about your Foster, because that's the kind of ghost I'm going to be.
Yeah.
I'm going to haunt my children and my grandchildren, and in the middle of a great scene, I'm going to switch it over to Bluey. Right? Or Teletubbies.
The best situation ever that I have told my roommate here, which I've told him 10,000 times, is not to challenge Foster. Because when you do, Foster then gets petty, like how you mentioned before. So the one time he was like, oh, screw Foster. He ain't real. There's nothing about him. So I was like, okay. And I heard, so generally when I know Foster's around, I get weird dreams. And that's my signal to be like, get out of the way. Cool. I went to work and had overtime that day. So he tries to do the laundry. Mind you, our door does not have a lock, but that door was locked. He could not get out of the laundry room. He was stuck. And the whole time he's like, what is going on? What is going on? And on the process of him calling me, the door opens. And he's like, yo, the door was locked. I don't know what to do. And I'm like, did you challenge Foster? Did you piss him off? Did you apologize? He's like, no, screw Foster. And the more he says screw you, the more we challenge Foster, the more active he becomes, the more things he does. So at this point, I just tell people if you see a shadow in the corner of your eye, if you see anything moving around the house, just say, hey Foster, respect it, move the other way. It has followed me since we moved to our new house as well. So
sure, you guys are fun to play with. Exactly. You got a dumbass roommate who keeps messing with him. Why not?
Effing around and finding out.
Yeah, that's now I have to. But did he do the laundry?
He's still challenging him. He's still calling him.
No. Did he do the laundry?
No.
The cynic in me just said, I don't want to do the laundry. I'm just going to blame it on Foster. I got locked out of the laundry room. Oh, it's the ghost. My kids, that won't work at home, so don't think about it.
So far, the only thing that Foster has ever done, as us playing around trying to make sure that he's there, is the lights are on. We still have normal lights in the house, and we'll be like, Foster, I'm getting tired. Can you turn off the light for me? And you see the dimmer just go all the way down to the bottom, and I'm like, thank you, I saved 30 cents of electricity today.
That's
thanks
right.
to you.
Turns off lights, folds blankets. I need a ghost like this.
He's saying that he locked him in the laundry room.
Right, but he yet didn't do the laundry.
No.
If you're locked in the laundry room,
What else are you going to do? The ghost won't let you out. Do the laundry, man.
So now so he sleeps.
This is a great story.
Yeah, he sleeps all the way at the end of the hallway in our room. So now every night, Foster now logs him, where we have a closet that now he knocks. So every single night, a couple of hours, you'll hear 3 knocks. just right near his door, and then he'll be like, "Who was that? Who was that?" And I'm like, you could blame it on the cats, but I think you know.
What kind of badass cats do you have walking around going meow, meow?
That's my laundry.
Yeah.
So there have been some situations like where I try to take pictures and like me and my husband's faces are blurred out with some sort of light because it's the wrong position. And if we go to the right spot, then the pictures are perfect.
The wrong position.
Yeah.
Pictures.
What weird ass story are we getting into now?
We're not doing it here.
Yeah. I got you. Wow. Very cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing. We got a couple left that we have to get to here before we wrap up. Thank you very much. And don't piss off Foster.
Do the laundry next time.
That's right. What's your name and where are you from?
I'm Izzy from Canada.
Hi, Izzy from Canada.
You really were from Canada.
I know. I told you. So what's up, Izzy?
He's like my best friend.
Oh, wow.
That's sweet. This is a setup.
Try. What's going on, Izzy?
So me and my ex used to go to this beautiful place called Riverview.
Okay.
It's an old asylum, like an insane asylum, where sick people and insane people would go. And it's a beautiful place. It's really big. It's got lots of tall, abandoned buildings. And our dumbasses went at night. Because, you know. Yeah. So
White people never learn from horror movies. Never do. Oh, hey, we should probably split up. Go ahead.
we didn't do that.
Okay.
Her mom just like stayed at the front,
Sure.
and then we just went around and seeing new places that we haven't before. And I thought she was just messing with me, but there were like weird blurs going on in the windows, and there were certain rooms up in the taller buildings that were on and off and on and off, and it was like a pattern. And it was really confusing because I knew that it was abandoned. So that was weird. And then we were walking some more, and I thought I felt something over here, but she was on this side.
Right.
So I don't know what happened, but it was just a really creepy place. But
Well, do me a favor. You got to be careful going into old, creepy places because there is a big homeless population that hangs out in a lot of these places. That's where they crouch, and they're much scarier sometimes to deal with than the dead. And I'm not besmirching homeless people, but when you encroach on their areas, they can get very territorial. And a lot of people forget that when they sneak into these places at night. And I've had some great stories where people got scared out of them and just realized it was somebody that was staying there.
Scared out of them?
Yeah. I'm trying to watch it a little bit here. And did you have a story or a question for us as well? Okay, pass that mic. And your name and where are you from?
Guessing from Canada.
Canada?
I'm Kayla. I'm from Vancouver, Canada.
Hey! Yay, Canada! We got one over there. Yay! All right, Kayla from Vancouver.
So you obviously do a lot of investigating, and you hang around. You're working with mediums and psychics. When you're with them and or away from them, and you're not working with them, do you feel like you've kind of gathered another sense of what is going on beyond like the cold spots and the sudden noises?
Like, have I started to kind of... Yeah.
Sense it?
I have, yeah. I'm not nowhere near the level of people like Sarah Lemos or Cindy Kaza or Kim Russo. But yeah, there are times, and because I'll go into a place and I'll like walk into an energy and I'm like, oh, there's something here. I'll be like, hey, Cindy, can you come up here? I want to do some EVP work. And she'll come walking up and go, oh, there's something right here. And I'm like, all right, I'm starting to tune in. I don't know that I want to, but I'm starting to tune in. But yeah, I think when you're around it and you're putting yourself in that position, you almost can't not have that happen. That's why people always ask me, are you afraid? You know, is something following you home? I don't know if it's followed me home. Or I've been in this haunted environment, charged, and it kind of is like static. I walk away, kind of like shuffling your feet on a shag rug, and you've got that static build up, and boom, you get shocked somewhere else. So I don't know if the energy I'm picking up is from the airport on my way home, a neighbor that might have passed away, his ghost that wanders over because I'm kind of glowing and obviously looking for this kind of communication. It's hard for me to tell. I don't have the ability to turn and go, oh, Eric's here. Eric was the ghost at, Lep Castle. So I don't get that, but I can definitely pick when there's a shift in the energy in a room. I can pick when there's something there, and 9 times out of 10, the mediums will walk right into it and tell me the exact same thing. But I also then wonder, is it my own fear that just put up a wall that they walked into because they're sensitive? Did something kind of unnerve me, and my energy is what they're picking up on as opposed to the spiritual energy? So it's hard. I don't know. It's hard to tell. I'm definitely interested. I've taken little courses with a few of my friends to understand sensitivity and emotion and how to pick up on it in certain locations. But I have never really gone to the full level of trying to open up all the way. Maybe I'll do that when I get older. Once I'm 35, maybe I'll think about it.
A few years still. Plenty of time before you get there.
I don't know why you guys find that funny. Very cool. Well, thank you, Kayla from Vancouver. Good to see you as well. Guys, gals, thank you for being here and being a part of the show. We will be live again in a couple of nights doing another podcast. It is our Shot in the Dark episode. We want you to be here, be drinking, go take care of your bartenders and bartenderesses, and get your drinks on, because as we read the news, every time somebody stumbles, you got to throw a drink down. We're going to have fun. We're going to have a good time. We got some wrestlers joining us up here to tell us their ghost stories. We've got stuff that we've got from news all around the world. We want to hear more from you. Until then, thank you for Chachi, the Colonel, me, Dave Schrader. This is the Paranormal 60.